guys, today we're making pot roast. If you want the full recipe, then check down in the description. First of all, we're going to start with our actual chuck roast. So open up your package and flip it out onto a board. And you're going to want to salt this liberally because we are going to sear it. And we're looking for the Maillard reaction. The Maillard reaction is basically caramelization, but it's the proteins on the outside of the meat that get brown rather than sugar in, say, onions or actual sugar when making caramel. To encourage the Maillard browning, then what we want to do is salt this liberally, and what this will do is it will draw moisture from just the very inside part of the meat out, including proteins from inside the meat. And then as the moisture tries to suck the salt back into the meat, the protein will be left on top, and that will help with our browning. So I'm going to make sure to liberally coat every surface with the salt. That should do for now, and I'm just going to set this aside while I prep the rest of my pot roast. Next up, I want to dice my onions. So, if you've seen my videos before, you know how to do this. I'm going to start by chopping off both ends. And I will have timestamps in the pinned comment at the top for this video, so you can skip ahead if you know how to do this. Then you're going to split down the middle into two halves, and you want to remove not just the outer wrapper, the brown part, but also the outermost layer. And then I'm going to do a fan cut on my half onions, so basically go in from the outside toward the center, and it will look like an open fan. And then I'm going to turn my onion and cut across to make my dice. And if you are particularly dominant-handed, you can turn the entire onion and do your last couple slices in the same direction. And then across for my dice. And now that my onion is ready, I'm going to bring it over to my slow cooker. Okay, so my slow cooker is set to low. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. That looks about right. And I'm going to dump in my onion. I have 2 pounds of baby carrots, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, 1.5 teaspoons of dried thyme, 1 teaspoon of dried parsley, salt, and pepper to taste. And while that starts softening, I'm going to go ahead and prepare my beef to sear. So this is going to go to about 6.5, and I'm going to let that get ripping hot before adding my beef. So my pan is ripping hot, and I've got some moisture starting to pool on top of my beef here, which is a good indicator that I'll get a really nice sear. In case you're worried about it burning, then the beef will release from the pan on its own when it has finished searing on that side. So if you try to move it and it sticks, then just let it cook a little while longer, and it'll release on its own. Oh, beautiful. Look at how brown that is. So my roast is beautifully seared, and I'm just going to dump this whole thing directly into my crock pot. And now that I've jammed my beef down in here, I know I can probably fit about 3 to 4 potatoes to cover everything and fill my pot. Okay, so I've washed my potatoes. They look pretty good. Now I just need to clean them up a little bit. So I'm going to cut off the end there. Turn it up on the cut end. And just kind of slice off those bits with any really dark spots. Okay, and then once I've cleaned my potato, all I need to do now is actually cut it into chunks. So split it in half or into thirds, depending on how big your potato is. And then just cut into smaller chunks, and you want them to all be about the same size. You know, big enough to stab a fork into and manage in one bite. Okay, so time to add my potatoes. And anytime you're making beef, you want to use Worcestershire. So 2 tablespoons of that. Then optional, a red wine in one of these perfect cooking size bottles. This is a Cabernet Sauvignon. You could also use a Merlot. And you can omit this if you don't like cooking with wine. And then you're just going to fill this up to the top with a gluten-free beef broth. Time to set it and forget it. On high heat, it'll probably only take about 4 to 5 hours. On auto, it'll take about 5 to 6. And on low heat, which is perfect for, you know, preparing in the morning and then coming home after work and it'll be ready, it could take between 6 and 8 hours, depending on the size of your roast. And hours later, with no additional work, my pot roast is ready. And I'm going to go ahead and yank off some meat. And it's so tender, it just pulls right off. Mmm. So, it's perfect. Very herby from the thyme and parsley. And the beef is tender enough to fall apart when you try to put it on your fork, but still has a little chew once it gets into your mouth. Perfect. The only thing better than fresh pot roast is 2-day-old pot roast. Put it in the fridge and it will really continue developing those flavors and become even more delicious. So I hope you guys enjoy making pot roast at home. And I will see you guys next time on the Deglutenizer.